thank you for joining us on the What Can You Do Right Now weekly workshop, where we are helping you get relevant, practical information that you can apply in your business today. Last week, we finished our series on running a sellable business. So even if you don't want to sell, I talked about financials and the basics of setting up your business. So if you didn't get a chance to look at that, then we will be happily share that out with you. Today we have Deshante Freeman who is a Chief Executive HR Ambassador at Freeman Human Resource Management. She is a seasoned and motivated human resource professional with over 10 years of experience. She spent her career bringing HR value to clients in a variety of industries, including finance, food service, real estate, nonprofits, and more. She and her team of HR ambassadors are dedicated to helping businesses navigate the sometimes zany world of HR. Deshante is going to cover bringing your team back to work safely. So with that, Deshante, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Anna, for having me. Just again, to talk a little bit more about us, we are a boutique HR consulting firm who works with companies to develop, implement, support, and maintain HR programs and processes for big picture organizational problem solving and creative growth strategies. So that's another little tidbit of what we do here, but we can hop right into the topic at hand. So as California moves into stage 2 or 3, depending on what news channel you're looking at, but we still are actually into of the resilience roadmap, every business should be taking steps to reduce the risk of COVID-19 and create a safer environment for workers and customers. So a quick question to you all. Are you guys prepared? Are you guys prepared to reopen? Yes? No? What do you think? You guys want to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down? So, okay. And then are you up to date on complying with all the state, the county, and industry specific regulations? Have you guys checked those out as well? Yes, no, so, maybe. Okay. Well, then today that's what I'm going to be talking about, just to give you some things to do as you prepare to reopen. So that's what we want to discuss today. So number one, we want to make sure that you guys are all conducting a business assessment, okay? That's the very first thing that you want to touch on. And under conducting a business assessment, you want to make sure that you're identifying critical office needs. So things like to think about, do you actually need people physically in the office? Should you continue to telework, or should you start teleworking? Is that an option? So those are the things you want to think about there. Reviewing staffing needs. Which jobs are necessary? Do you want to work on a skeleton crew perhaps? Maybe having people come in different shifts. So maybe an 8 to 1 and then a 1 to 6. Do you want to split it up that way? Or do you want to have one employee doing multiple job functions? So focusing on cross-training and developing that one employee because you don't have the resources right now to afford, a full staff. The next thing you want to look at is assessing the workplace risk. So if you are having people working in the office, look at the employee workstation. How far apart should they be? Do you want to, we know at least 6 feet, but do you want to create some extra space? Do you want to perhaps buy those little plexiglass things and close them all off, or maybe every other cube? That can also be an option of how you can actually assess your workplace. Another thing is common areas. So the kitchens, the bathrooms, the conference rooms, you're going to have to start limiting the number of people that are in those locations. Should you start implementing those little social distancing decals on the floor? I know you guys probably walked in a few restaurants and saw like stand here, stand there. Do you want to have that in your office? What about like shared space? So the copy machines, do you wipe those down after each use? How does that work? Everyone can't crowd the copy machine at one time. Doing away with potlucks. Unfortunately, you know, you probably can't have everyone, oh, let's have a potluck today. You bring this in. Where the new norm is, we probably can't do things like that, or no more group meetings. So I know how we'll meet in a conference room and behind closed doors, but maybe we have to do that via Zoom, or maybe we have to just pick up the phone and have that conversation. So really take a look at your business assessment and just really look at each one of these things and figure out what will be the best way to move forward. Which takes me to a little pop quiz for you guys. Another thing that's going to be really interactive. So a question for you guys, true or false? If an employer has an employee handbook, they do not need any additional policies and procedures related to COVID-19. Is that a true statement or false? Seeing some thumbs down. Okay. Ding, ding, ding. That's right. That is false, which leads me to number 2, which are plans, policies, and protocols. So it's very important for everyone or every business owner to create a prevention and response plan. It's actually required for you to do that. So it's not only, you know, good to protect your business, but the state, the county, and industry specifics have certain plans or guidelines outlined that you as the industry are supposed to follow. So you want to make sure that you are responding promptly and taking measures necessary to prevent the virus from spreading. So this is why you have those policies and plans and protocols in place. And also taking appropriate action in accordance with the local and state health authorities. So what happens if an employee is suspected or does actually is confirmed to have COVID-19? What do? You need to have a response plan in place to respond to those type of instances, okay? The next thing is implementing employee control measures and screening. So things like temperature taking. How are you guys gonna conduct that? Are you going to have each employee take their temperature coming into the office? Are you going to have the temperature, you know, the monitor and take their temperature there? Are you going to create a line outside the door? It needs to be in a confidential type of setting, because if I have a fever of 105 and you say, oh, Deshante has 105 fever, that's actually HIPAA pertinent information that is to me and my medical information. So everyone can't hear that. So am I going to go off to the side and have little temperature taking, you know, time? Or perhaps maybe having them taking the temperature at home before they come into work. And I would actually recommend something like that. Main thing about temperature taking is I want you guys to remember that this should be paid. I know there's a lot of back and forth of people are like, oh, do I pay for this or do I not? You should definitely pay for these temperature taking time. And I would actually recommend as well to have that as a line item on their paycheck to say, this is the time to take temperature, and then these are their hours work. If you are going to have them take their temperature at home, it might be advantageous for you to have a checklist for them to just go ahead and check that off and have that documentation to say, yes, I took my temperature, I'm good to go, I'm ready to come into work, and then you guys keep that in a safe place. The next thing is implementing some disinfection protocols. So how often are employees going to disinfect their workstation? Are you going to have it every hour on the hour, you wipe down? Is it going to be in between uses? So just actually having that in a policy in place. Also, no more dirty dishes in the sink, guys. You have to wash those off right as soon as you have a dirty dish. We have to, get those clean because we want to keep everything clean and safe from germs, right? Disinfecting equipment in between uses, like I said. Like for instance, the copying machine, are you going to wipe that down every use? How are you going to do that? The next thing is implementing physical distancing guidelines. So the social distancing guidelines to minimize, again, the spread of the disease among the staff. It's very important for you to have a policy and aligns with that. So making sure that you have that policy outlined. So guidelines for employees and visitors. So even for your UPS driver or the people that dropping off mail, you should have a protocol if you are in the office of how you guys are going to collect that disinfected. What are you going to do? So not only protecting your employees, but the people who are coming into your office and your facility. Okay. The last thing I like to talk about for policies and procedures and plans are PPE. So we want to make sure that this is company sponsored. You want to make sure that that is available to your team. So whether they're face masks, whether they're gloves, hand sanitizer, you want to make sure that you as a company and a business owner are providing that to your employees as well. Okay. So a main thing about this as well is if you want to make sure that you have a line item in your policies as well, or stress that if policies are not followed, they may result in disciplinary action leading up into termination. And I know that sounds a little harsh, but you have to protect yourself as a business owner as well. It is your duty as a business owner to protect your business and your employees that are in it. So you have to have, of course, policies and procedures in place that they have to abide by in order to make sure it's safe for everyone. Okay. My next little pop quiz question for you guys. Yay. So, okay, your employee, Sally, that looks, you see the little picture of Sally that looks disgusting, but Sally arrives to work with a fever, a cough, shortness of breath. What should Sally do next? Should she A, leave work, contact her healthcare provider, then contact her supervisor? B, stay at work, practice social distancing and hand washing? Or C, contact her healthcare provider and get a note to leave work? Which one, guys? One, I see one, I'm guessing A. That's it. I see an A. You guys are right. It is absolutely A. You guys didn't even need me. You already knew all this. Which leads me to my next and last point of communication. So it's very important for us to communicate as business owners. And one thing that you want to make sure you communicate first and foremost is the return to work plan. You need to communicate to your employees to tell them, hey, we do have a plan. We are concerned about your safety. You want to be as transparent as possible. You want to let them know what's going on, because this is a scary situation for a lot of people. This is not only their health, but this can result in a life or death situation. So a lot of employees might be reluctant to come back in, not only to the workspace, but out into the world. There's so many people who are locked behind their houses and don't come out for any reason. So the more that you're transparent, the more that you communicate your return to work plan, the less you can, put their nerves at ease. So you want to make sure that you're really communicating that plan. Also with communicating that plan, how are you going to do it? Are you going to send them a letter in the mail? Or are you going to just shoot out some emails? Maybe perhaps even conduct a Zoom call like this, or even a call on the phone to say, this is our plan. But you have to also figure out how you're going to roll out this plan or communicate this plan to them. Okay. The next thing is require workplace posters. So the posters that are required, like the FFCRA, so the Family First Coronavirus Response Act poster. That is a law that was signed into place by President Trump in March, to say that employers are supposed to provide employees with paid sick leave and an expanded family and medical leave for specific reasons related to COVID-19. So there are about 6 reasons under the paid sick leave and 1 reason for the extended FMLA. And this is for employers from 1 to, if you have 1 to 499 employees. this law is geared around that. They do all have some extra laws or other laws for 500 plus, but this specific law is about from 1 to 499 employees. But this went into effect April 1st, and it's going to stay into effect for the duration of the year. So even if they lift up the stay-at-home order or ban in August or September, this law is still in place. And you were required as employers to post this poster within 15 days of the law being in effect. So by April 15th, everyone should have either had up this poster for all of their business, all of their employees to see, or you were required to distribute it to all of your employees. So this isn't one of those things where it's a law and then your employees and say, hey, can I take this leave? And you say, sure, you can. You as the employer were supposed to actually educate them on this law. So that is a poster that you need to have up. Other posters like the CDC posters, so social distancing, posters, face mask wearing posters, hand washing posters, stay at home when you're sick posters. So all of those posters that the CDC did have available or does have available for you, these are the type of posters that you want to make sure that you're putting up. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you have a dedicated COVID rep, okay? And what I mean by this is there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of communication, like I said, temperature taking, who is going to communicate it. It's really important to either have a rep or a team who is really going to focus on these items and make sure that they are keeping track of them. Whoever you have to do this, we want to make sure that they are keeping copious notes and documentation, and that they have to have an understanding and a level of confidentiality, okay? So even if you don't have an HR person, whoever you have being this rep, you want to make sure they have that confidentiality factor, because if they are going to be looking at, you know, whatever temperature information or medical information, that is very proprietary. So we want to make sure that that does not go out to everyone and everyone knows who has a fever or what their fever was. So we want to make sure we hone in on that, okay? The next thing is employee training. So there's not a long drawn out, like an hour-long training, but you just want to make sure that you give them a quick training on ways to avoid exposure and how to limit the spread of the virus. Also, employees how they can screen themselves for symptoms. And a lot of this stuff can be found through the CDC and, you know, other state, our state government have things to how to look for training, but we want to make sure that we are providing them with the training and how they are supposed to report COVID-19 symptoms related to in the workplace. So who are they supposed to go to? Who are they supposed to report this to if they feel like they're getting feverish, and so on and so forth, okay? So those are our three main things that we wanted to touch on. So I know we had some thumbs up and some thumbs down or some so-so. So how do you guys think you guys are doing after hearing our spiel or our recommendation on what you should do to be prepared? Do you guys think you're prepared? No? So-so? Still so-so? Yes? I see some yeses out there. I might need you guys on my team. If you know all this already. Okay, well then the last thing is, does anybody have any other questions? Anything that you were guessing and you needed more clarification on? We're happy to respond.
Yeah. We got a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll start there and warm people up. So the first question is, what if my employee says that they can't come to work because their child care provider or child school hasn't reopened? That is a really prevalent question right now.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are dealing with that. So that is actually one of the qualifying reasons under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. That title is so long. That is actually, I believe, number 5 of the qualifying reason. So technically, if you are working, if you're an active employee, and teleworking is not available, you can actually tap into that sick leave, which is 80 hours for a full-time employee, or if you're a part-time, 2 weeks worth equivalent. So that actually allows you to tap into that time. And also it gives you access to the extended FMLA as well, because that is a 12-week time period that you can take a leave from work, and it was only one qualifying reason under that one. So you can tap into that. But another note, it's very important for business owners to have a response for that. So it's very important for you to have a policy in place to deal with these type of situations. So when an employee comes to you and say, hey, I don't have childcare because my child's school is closed, what do you do next? That's why it's very important to have a policy outline to say, this is what you do next, and you share that with your employees so they know the next steps and the documentation that they need to provide.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Are there any state, federal, county guidelines or regarding potential repercussions for businesses that open without having a plan in place?
They haven't necessarily laid it out black and white. Or at least I haven't seen black and white. Like, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen. They have like a blanket statement to saying, if you are not following the policies and procedures, that you can be penalized. Ultimately, our response and how we've been helping our clients is really putting together, these policies and procedures, helping them with a plan, helping them with these policies and procedures so it can limit their liability. Of course, there's going to be lawsuits. Walmart has one, Trader Joe's has one currently, so it's going to be there, but by putting these things in place and following the guidelines, it's going to limit your liability to those lawsuits. But to answer your question again, no, I haven't seen, if you don't have a plan, you're going to get fined X amount of dollars for any of these, including the FFCRA leave. It just does say that you can get fined and penalized for it. Yep.
Thanks. We have another question in the chat from Thomas. He asked, what if an employee says that they don't feel safe coming back to work?
Yeah, definitely. I think that is a great question. And we just really have to be sympathetic and empathetic to our employees. If they say that they don't feel safe, we don't want to say, okay, well, you're fired, get out of here. We don't want to have that reaction. This is a very stressful time for a lot of people. So we want to make sure, like I said, we empathize with them. We want to talk through their job. Like, what are they doing? Is it possible that their job can actually, they can do their job functions at home? If they can and they can telework, let's probably present that option. If teleworking is not an option for them, then we just say, okay, if you don't feel safe, then we will allow them to not, don't allow them to come into work. You don't want to force them, and you don't want to force a termination, because there's so many moving balls right now to where laws are changing every day. So it can come out to be a wrongful termination. So our recommendation is to allow those employees, give them an option to telework, or try to see how you can work with their job functions, some reasonable accommodations. If not, then allow them that time. And I understand you as a business owner will still have to function. So if you need to get someone else who does feel comfortable, you can definitely do that to run your business. But empathy is the key word here, empathy.
I love that so much. That makes me really happy. I think that's such a good way of approaching things, and it's really balanced. So I love that answer. I have a question. So from your perspective, do you think it's better to kind of draw out these policies as best you can, as like thoroughly as you can, and disseminate them, or just take them as they come? Maybe you don't have someone who isn't comfortable coming back to work yet, and you don't necessarily want to create a policy before you get to that bridge? I don't know. What are your recommendations on that?
Well, yes, I feel like it's a case by case. To me, if you're reopening, I would not reopen without the plan and the policies in place. I just would not do that, you know? Well, you actually can't do that. In order to reopen, you have to have a plan and certain, it doesn't necessarily say policy, but you have to have certain plans and protocols in place. So you do that as a company by creating policies. So of course, for the things that pertain to your industry is what you would do. So, I mean, for instance, I have a client where they're pretty much more out in the field. So the hand washing or talking about hand washing and so on and so forth, like in the office, or how often they need to clean their workspace. Well, they're not inside, they're outside. They go out to people. So cleaning a workspace, that's not an actual policy that pertains to them. So again, we work with, you know, each client, and we provide policies that is specific to them in their industry. But the standard ones, again, like social distancing, that's a thing that everyone has to do. Have that policy in place. Face mask wearing. Well, you know, in California, we go back and forth with that, right? So one day we have to wear face masks, the next day we don't. But you as a company can definitely say that's your own little bubble. So you can definitely have a policy to make sure that your employees are wearing a face mask, regardless if they have to wear it outside, whether the state says they have to or not, because you can create those policies in place. So I would recommend you do them ahead of time before you open to, again, you're going to hear me say it 1,000 times, limit your liability. So that will be our recommendation.
That is a great mantra. How can we limit our liability? If only HR professionals were able to help us with that. I have one question for you, Deshante. It's kind of a two-part question. One would be, do you recommend having an outside service do those temperature checks, like having a healthcare professional come out, or is it okay to have someone at your company? And then also, what if an employee refuses to have their temperature taken?
Yeah, having an outside, my recommendation or my feedback and what I've been seeing is that, you know, a lot of businesses don't have the cash flow to hire somebody else out. So what we've been recommending is we propose to our clients to do a self-assessment taking. So they do the temperature taking, self-assessment taking before they come into work. And that's what we have. We provide them with a little checklist that they do, you know, are you feeling feverish? So we ask those questions, they sign off on it, and then they send it into their employer to say, I'm good to go. And then they come into work. Because I mean, by law, you don't have to, you know, go into the doctor or have that professional, you know, that creates a lot of exposure and money, you know? So, I mean, if you have extra money to spend, I still wouldn't. I wouldn't, you know, like save your dollars, you know, have them do the self-assessment and, you know, cover it that way, and then have them come in. And then, I'm sorry, your second part of your question was? If
an employee refuses to comply with that, if there's an employee that won't do the self-assessment or won't have their temperature taken.
Definitely. You are the governor of your business. So if they do not follow your rules and regulations, then don't come into work. Plain and simple. If you don't want to take your temperature, you don't want to do that. Again, sympathetic, sympathy, you know, we completely understand. Thank you so much. But unfortunately, you cannot come into work without having this assessment done. So you have to make sure that they are safe and that your other employees are safe. So we have to be the government of our business, and that's how we have to do it. So in a nice way.
That.
In a nice way. Thank you.
Well, we are actually at time. So if you do need to jump off, feel free. Thank you again, Deshante. That was amazing information. I feel like I learn something every time I talk to you, which I absolutely love. If you would like more information, if you would like to reach out to Deshante directly, if you have more questions that we didn't cover today on getting back to work or just human resources in general, because managing people in an effective way and also in a way that covers your liability is very hard. And having professionals support you in that who are experts in it is just such a great resource. So here is her contact information as well as mine. As businesses are starting to open back up and kind of getting back to businessing, sort of as usual, we are going to move this workshop to a bi-monthly, so that'll allow you to do more time getting back to what you need to do, things like implementing back to work policies. Thanks again to Deshante for showing us how to do that safely. But we do want to keep sharing resources and information throughout, through this platform. So ongoing, we will be doing the first and the third Thursday of the month. With the 4th of July weekend, we are going to push that next month to be July 9th and July 23rd. And on July 9th, we will have Ryan McIntyre, a business law expert who's going to be talking about AB5 and how we can know whether someone is an employee or a contractor. So we hope that you can join us for that. And just thank you again, Deshante. That was fantastic.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll hope everyone has a great week and happy 4th of July.